for me, because I'm not frequently asked to speak to people, because I'm normally too busy trying to have a good time with them to take a while and explain to them in any kind of a serious way why it is that I can have a good time. But I will tell you a little bit about why I believe I can have a good time. When I was in high school, I made a decision that I wanted to serve the Lord. And I had several friends, I had several teachers who thought that was a ridiculous decision for a number of reasons. First of all, they didn't know what it was like to serve the Lord themselves. Second of all, they didn't know that I had any kind of seriousness in my faith. And that would be kind of like my deciding to become a Buddhist monk without really believing in Buddha, as far as they were concerned. But I took a gamble. And I know when I went into the youth ministry, it was a strange choice again. A lot of people thought, man, you'll never be able to be a youth minister. You don't have enough organization to be a youth minister. And after working under a very patient minister, I discovered that organization was not the end of the world, and that you could love people and be organized. And after being what I would consider fairly successful in the youth ministry, I had another strange turn in my life. I felt that God was saying, I want you to be involved in music primarily, because you have gifts there that a lot of other people don't have. And my parents were very disappointed when I told them that I was going to resign from a church that paid me a very good salary and was going to go into a work totally on faith, without any support, without any means of income. My parents, who were then the parents of probably a guy about 25 years old, flipped out. It was the last straw. I had been reckless all my life, and they were just waiting for me to stop being reckless. Now, about 5 years later, I own my own home. I probably have more friends in this very room than most people have in the whole world. I feel more loved than I've ever felt in my life. I have more of a sense of purpose than I've ever had before. And I'll tell you why this has happened. There are a few things in the world that I really believe in. One thing that I believe is that everybody is going to die. And I think death happens one of two ways. Either your spirit becomes smaller and smaller and weaker and weaker until it can no longer sustain life for your body. And your body, the weight of your body crushes the remains of your spirit. Or your spirit becomes stronger and stronger and larger and larger until your body can no longer contain your spirit. And your body just crumbles and your spirit is free to go. You either diminish or you grow. But everybody is going to die sooner or later. Knowing that we're going to die makes me want to live a lot. Because I know heaven's going to be a great place. I know I will meet the Lord, and I know that He will, because of His grace, He will welcome me. And that will be a great thing, to have the approval of God, even though it would be nice if we could imagine that we deserve the welcome and the approval of God. But I don't want to miss a moment between now and then of the opportunities that I have. Another thing I believe is that we are all, every one of us in this room, alive. And I have some evidence to support that belief. Not a whole lot. But I want to say 3 things about life to you guys, because we're going to have to deal with that sooner or later. Let's deal with life now, because that's what we've got to work with. First of all, I want to tell you that life is good. And I don't care what anybody tells you, life is good. And I don't care how hard you have it, life is good. And I don't care how many hard knocks you've had, life is good. And it doesn't make any difference if you're lonely. Life is good. And it doesn't make any difference if you're poor, because life is good. And it doesn't make any difference if you're a failure, because life is good. If you say that God is a good shepherd and that he gives you good gifts, then you have to acknowledge that life is a gift from God. So life has to be good. Sometimes it's a matter of faith. Sometimes you can't just easily say, yeah, life is great. Life is good. I'm glad I'm here. Sometimes it's hard to say, yes, Jesus is Lord. But when you're a Christian, you don't say just what's easy to say. In fact, you say what's very hard to say. And what you cannot say without the help of the Holy Spirit. At the conclusion of every day, at the first 7 days of the world, God said a phrase. At the conclusion of the first 5 days, that is, he said a phrase. What was that phrase? It's good. I did good. I made it just like it ought to be. One day he said something different. What was that? It is very good. And what did he make on the one day that when he said it was very good? He made people. You know what really knocks me out about that? Is God said it is very good, probably knowing full well at that very moment that man would be the one who would bring death into the rest of the world that was good already. I think a great mime skit, I don't know how many of you are into mime, but I think one great mime skit would be to portray God when he came down after Adam and Eve had messed up. And he had to kill the first animal to make clothes for Adam and Eve. Knowing full well that the killing would not stop there. That because man screwed up, there was going to be death during the whole history of the earth, until in the end the earth would die, and death would die, and we wouldn't need to die anymore. That'd be a pretty dramatic scene, I think. But God, knowing the pain that would come into the world because of mankind, when he finished making him, said, it's very good. I did my best work today. In fact, I did so good, I'm going to knock off for the rest of the weekend. God said life was good, and God knew that the man he had created was going to cost the life of his son. God knew that there was sorrow in life, but he didn't shrink away from it. And he didn't fail to do his best job making his worst creature, man. There's a movie that I love called Harold and Maude. It's a bizarre movie. I don't necessarily recommend it for anybody, but I do enjoy it myself. And in the movie, there's this 18-year-old boy who was bent on suicide. And throughout the whole movie, he commits suicide several times, and never successfully. And never meaningfully. It's always just theatrics. He always just does it to shake up his mother, who you kind of enjoy seeing her being shaken up, because you don't really like her very much in the movie. Anyway, Harold, the 18-year-old hero of the movie, goes to funerals for a hobby, because he's obsessed with death. And at one of these funerals, he meets an old woman who is 79 years old, who also goes to funerals for a hobby. But Maude, the 79-year-old heroine in the movie, is in love with life. And Maude sees death as being part of life. Maude sees that as just being part of the whole process. She was, of course, into reincarnation, so she viewed the process a little bit differently than I do as a Christian. But nevertheless, she takes Harold and begins to pay attention to him, and step by step, little by little through the movie, in the process of a week, in the story time, and in about an hour and 20 minutes in the movie time, she introduces Harold to all kinds of great experiences. And at one point in the movie, she lives in a boxcar that's full of memorabilia. And she's introducing us to these wild experiences